We are back with another Falcons Historian Player Shootout, talking about the GOAT, Tony Gonzalez.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. and the very humble host of this illustrious podcast. Been covering the Falcons for a lifetime, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP. Appreciate all of you guys that are on this journey around the sun for another one, as everydayers that tune in each and every day for your first listen. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode is another Falcons Historian Player Shootout, our summer-long series trivia tournament where my co-host Alan Strk, a contributor over at the Falcoholic, we go and pit two guests up against one another, answering trivia questions about a Falcons legendary player from the past 20 years. And today's guests are David Schiele and Adnan Ikic, and it's all about Tony Gonzalez, the former Falcons tight end. And David is born and raised in Atlanta, but if you're in the Tampa area, you can catch him daily on the Channel 10, covering Tampa sports, WTSP. And, you know, if you're not familiar with Adnan, he talks all about the Falcons over at the Falcoholic and Falcoholic Live here on YouTube. And, you know, please feel free, guys, to drop a comment on today's episode, answering, you know, sort of how many of these questions that you wound up getting right out of the 10 that we throw at David and Adnan. And we're going to start off this conversation talking, going down memory lane, looking back at Tony Gonzalez's illustrious 5 years here in Atlanta and how he was able to contribute his Hall of Fame legacy. And that starts right now. So let's start this conversation before we get into the trivia portion of today's episode, talking all about Tony Gonzalez. And, you know, as I mentioned, an illustrious player. Adnan, we'll start with you. Sort of, what are some of maybe your biggest memories or enduring memories about Tony Gonzalez during his time in Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, Tony Gonzalez, you want to talk about, Mr. Consistency. And, one thing that I really like what the Falcons did in those early Thomas Dimitroff days when he, first came on in 2008, drafted Matt Ryan. One thing that the Falcons did very, very well was they set Matt Ryan up for success from the get-go. Obviously, signing Michael Turner, having that great offensive line, and then Roddy White was already there. And then the big move that they make after that rookie season, after that 11-win season, they go out and trade for a first-team All-Pro selection in Tony Gonzalez. And I mean, how often does it happen where someone who was just a first-team All-Pro get traded in the offseason? So that was incredibly exciting. And then Tony Gonzalez comes in, gives the team five amazing seasons, and it was just, I feel like Tony Gonzalez, there aren't enough good things to say about him. He was just the consummate locker room leader, just an absolute professional. One of the best tight ends in the game, all the way up until he finished his career, which it's not something that many players can say, where at the end of his last season, he was incredibly effective, and he was still one of the best tight ends, one of the elite tight ends in the game. And then when he goes into the Hall of Fame a few years ago, he made a lot of Chiefs fans angry by saying how he feels like I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but it felt like he was in it like as much an Atlanta Falcon as anything else. And despite the fact that he was with the Chiefs for a lot longer than he was with Atlanta, and that's just one of the best tight ends. I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that the Falcons went out and got the best tight end in franchise history in 2009. I don't think, too many people expected him to play all the way through 2013, but he gave the Falcons a lot of really effective seasons, and he was just as important of a part of the most successful period in team history as anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. David, what are some of maybe your enduring memories and thoughts on Tony Gonzalez during his time in Atlanta?
I remember I was sitting in, we had a wellness class in middle school, and my teacher of the wellness class was also my head football coach, knew I was a big Falcons fan, and he was handing out like a quiz or something. And before he even gives me the quiz, he goes, "Do you know you guys just traded for Tony Gonzalez?" I was like, "Really?" I was pumped, right? And I was like, "Man, all right, that sounds really cool to me," So I remember going home, turning on the NFL Network, and sure enough, they were talking about it. And so watching Tony Gonzalez on the Falcons was like, this is blowing my mind that this dude is on the Falcons when it comes to a guy that we knew was going to be a Hall of Famer. It's like, this is a future Hall of Famer that we're watching right here. And just to echo what was just said, Matt Ryan was given so many weapons around him. He was given Michael Turner, already had Roddy White. They go out and trade for Tony G. They go out and draft Julio Jones. Like, he had so many weapons. And I'm one of those guys that I had an affinity for the wide receiver. That's like, this dude, this dude wasn't all that, right? But I was a Harry Douglas guy. So I don't want to leave him out of that conversation, because I did appreciate his ability out of the slot and the way he would, move around the field and everything like that. So I want to shout him out, as well as even Jaquiz Rogers. I was a Jaquiz guy as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Matt had so many weapons around him, and Tony Gonzalez was just a leader of men when it came to that group of weapons. And the biggest thing was, he came to Atlanta, and we're thinking, look, this guy's been in the league more than a decade already. Maybe he's got 2 years, right? Like, 2 years, okay, I think we'll be okay with that. But man, we always heard about him in those playoff games, right? Never win in a playoff game. And I remember Seattle takes the lead by 1, and I'm like, I don't think Tony's ever going to win a playoff game, man. I don't know what's going on. And then, of course, Tony, ironically, is the one that makes the catch to put Atlanta in field goal position. Matt Bryant makes what I think is the second most important kick in Falcons history, with the first one being the one against the Vikings in 1998. But Matt Bryant makes the second most important kick, and Tony Gonzalez is crying going off the field because the Falcons have finally won a playoff game. And, what happened next week is what happened the week after that. It is what it is. But those are my immediate memories when someone goes, "Hey, how was it when Tony Gonzalez was a Falcon?"
Alan, anything you want to add about Tony Gonzalez's time in Atlanta?
I think one of the coolest things about his time was he got better as he aged. Like, I think his seasons in 11, 12, and 13 were his best seasons. Not to say in 09 and 10 he had bad seasons. It was just maybe the limitations of the offense. Like, I remember in 2011, this was the last season under Mike Mularkey. That offense was struggling at times. And some of it was because of bad pass protection. And I still think they were trying to find their identity because they still wanted to run the ball. But I just remember Gonzalez being the most consistent player that season, at least offensively. And he I don't know if he turned up a level. It just something about his productivity. It grew as the season went on. 11 and then 12 and then 13. And 13, he essentially had to carry the offense at times. So I think that's just a testament to his work ethic as someone who, even though as you get older, you lose a little bit athletically, he was just so savvy, great route runner. Knew how to create that separation. If he had to push off, he did it in a very savvy way. So just everything you want from a tight end, Tony Gonzalez brought it. And it was just a real treat because it's seeing the Falcons actually trade for a player at the top of their respective position was just such a cool feeling at the time. So I remember 05, they got Abraham, which was a big moment, but Tony Gonzalez just felt like, whoa, okay, they're really going for it. And I feel like they were capitalizing at the time because the Chiefs were in total rebuild mode. And it was just like, all right, this is the perfect thing. Capitalize on this one. Because I think Gonzalez wanted to trade at that point. So kudos to Dimitrov for making it happen. And we had a fun 5 years. A lot of great memories with Tony Gonzalez.
For the younger listeners, that those weren't the Chiefs that we know now.
Right.
Like, the Pat Mahomes Chiefs are, they are the dynasty right now. Those Chiefs were really, really bad. Like, they were starting Brody Croyle at quarterback. It was just, I was really happy for Tony more than anyone when he came to Atlanta that, like, this dude deserves to be on a winner. And I mean, as weird as it feels to say, the Falcons were a winner, at least at that point.
Yeah. Matt Castle, I don't know if we're putting enough respect on Matt Castle's name, Adnan, by talking about those bad Chiefs.
Never forget that 11-win Patriots season after Brady went down.
Yeah, you said some things
that
on
convinced
podcast.
Kansas City. That when Castle went out there and did that, they were like, "Oh yeah,
this is our guy.
This is our guy."
Yeah. But it's funny you guys talk about so many things. Like, I remember when the Falcons traded for Tony Gonzalez, and David, you kind of talked about it. Like, we didn't know how many years he had left. And so initially I was like not 100% sold on the Falcons giving up a second round pick for a guy that might play like 1 or 2 years. It's like, and while you understood he would help the team, but it was just like, yeah, this is not a long-term move. And it's like, is this really good? But, I think Tony showed, as Alan sort of touched upon, even if 2009 and 2010 weren't necessarily as good as some of the other years he had, he was very impactful in those years. And then you saw him continue to play at a really high level those last couple of years here in Atlanta. And as Alan said, sort of carrying the offense in a lot of ways, a lot of weeks. And, sort of at the peak of that in 2012, where it was just kind of like you had this three-headed monster in terms of the weapons that you had. And, some weeks it was Julio going off, and some weeks it was Roddy going off. And then the next week it would be Tony going off. And it was virtually impossible for defenses to stop, because it was just like, you just didn't have enough talent to slow down all three of those guys. And one of those guys was going to be able to find a mismatch. And that was what was so good about Matt Ryan, was being able to find those mismatches on any given play, which will allow those Falcons offenses to be sort of the thing that I don't necessarily love today, which is like, these going on these 12 play scoring drives or whatever, but they were so good at doing it. Like, they're the only team I've ever really seen it where it's like every week, like, they're going to get like 3 or 4 of those like 12 play scoring drives where it's just like third and whatever, they're going to convert it somehow in some way. And a lot of that was owed to Tony Gonzalez and that connection that him and Matt Ryan had really from the jump when he first got to Atlanta. So with Tony Gonzalez, yeah, he's one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Where exactly you rank him 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, it depends on what you value. And, do you value longevity? Tony Gonzalez gets the win in that regard. Do you look at sort of his peak compared to other players? Maybe you would put Gronk or Kelsey or Shannon Sharp or something like that above him, but certainly on the Mount Rushmore of NFL tight ends. And it was very much a privilege as a Falcon fan to be able to watch him and watch sort of, as you guys have touched upon, the sort of consistency and leadership and all those things that he was able to bring on the football field. And like, I remember when he retired, I was like, I hope this guy gets in the movies, because I know he tried to do a little bit of acting and stuff, but he's just like such a charismatic person that it was just like, he could probably have done anything he wanted to do in life, and just such a talented person. Like, if he wanted to go all, I know his first love was basketball. If he wanted to be an NBA player, he probably could have been that. He wound up being one of the greatest NFL tight ends, and like, went on to is still doing broadcasting and whatnot. David knows what that's about, and probably if he really wanted to do, could have been a Hollywood actor. So and I think it speaks to such the person that Tony Gonzalez is, not only on the field but also off the field.
I was reading up a little bit on him, and yeah, like, this dude is literally like the most interesting man in the world. He's like the old Dos Equis, like, commercial where, apparently he like saved a dude's life, like giving him the Heimlich maneuver. And like, before he came to the Falcons, apparently he's like a distant cousin of William Shakespeare. It was just like, all right, like, yeah, to Aaron's point, it's like, can this dude do any wrong, off the field? And apparently the answer was no.
Yeah. So any last tidbits on Tony Gonzalez before we move on and start peppering these guys with trivia questions?
I will say, Aaron, don't sell yourself short, bro. You've been in broadcasting. You know what I'm saying? You do this Locked On Falcons thing. I'm not the only broadcaster sitting in this virtual Foursquare.
I appreciate it. Yeah, sure. I was going to try to say something humble, but I'm not going to. So thank you, David.
Come on, man.
We're honoring everyone tonight. This is an honorary episode.
Trying to soften you up for these questions.
Pretty much, because he's going to be pissed at me. I'm glad we're seeing eye to eye right now, David. Because by the end of this thing,
I know how you get down, Aaron. I know how you get. You go, what? Who cut Tony Gonzalez's hair on the third Tuesday in July before training camp? I don't know, Aaron.
We'll find out. So, that may be a question, it may not be, but we'll sort of continue today's episode with Adnan coming up, answering his questions. Alan will be peppering him with Tony Gonzalez trivia questions, and then we'll come back later with my questions for David. And so we will get into the trivia portion of today's Falcons Historian Player Shootout as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So, guys, the NBA Finals may be over. Stanley Cup Finals may be soon to be over, but it's still the summer, and there's still plenty of things to get out and see and do, including sports, comedy, theater, music near you. And Gametime is going to take the guesswork out of buying tickets to those summertime events, and they're going to allow you to be spontaneous because it's the perfect place to buy last minute. You just hop on the app, see what's popping near you. Their flash deals means that you can save on exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game. Their all-in prices means you're not going to be worried about surprise or hidden fees at checkout. And we all love their seat views because you get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So take advantage of the great offers and deals by downloading the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So we are back here for the Falcons Historian Player Shootout, talking Tony Gonzalez. And Alan, I will give you the floor to ask Adnan. Sorry, can't talk. His 5 trivia questions. And for those of you that are new to this sort of thing, this is your first episode. We did 2 episodes last week. We'll do 2 more this week and 2 more next week, and then 2. You know how it goes. Basically, Alan will ask Adnan 5 questions. Whoever gets however many he gets right, I will ask David 5 questions. However many gets right, whoever gets the most right after that first round is the winner. If there is a tie, there will be a sudden death question at the end of the show. But we'll see if we get into that, and we'll explore that further if we need to. But Alan, I'll give you the floor to start asking Adnan questions.
All right, Adnan. Question 1. Tony Gonzalez earned 1 of his 6 first-team All-Pro selections in Atlanta. Which season was it?
2012.
That is correct. Well done. Tony Gonzalez had a spectacular one-handed touchdown catch in a primetime game in 2011, right before halftime. Who was the opponent?
The Philadelphia Eagles. Mike Vick's return. Well, as a starter.
Boom. Spot on there. Question 3. Gonzalez scored a touchdown in 3 consecutive games in 2011. Name 2 of the 3 opponents he did it against.
2011. I think that was the start of the season. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs and the Broncos.
You got your seasons mixed up. 2011. That was 2012. It was the Colts, Saints, and Titans.
Okay. Yeah, that one got me because he had a lot of those streaks.
Yeah, no, both those seasons, I think those were his 2 best seasons. So I can see how you got the confused. Speaking of 2012, we're going to go with 2012 right now for this one. Question 4. Which former Falcon did Gonzalez catch a touchdown pass over in the Falcons' impressive Thursday night win over the Saints in 2012?
Ooh, the former Falcon 2012. Is it Curtis Lofton?
That's correct. There you go. I was really hoping you would get that because that was such a great catch. And at the time, Curtis Lofton, for whatever reason, I don't know why he was so hated, but I guess that was the peak of the Falcons-Saints rivalry. But, man, people just hated him.
I absolutely hated it. He broke my heart. He broke my heart leaving the Falcons for the Saints. So, yeah, I think I called him Judas for a time.
All right. So question 5. Only 2 tight ends gained more receiving yards than Gonzalez in that impressive 2012 season. Name both the tight ends that have more receiving yards than him.
I'm gonna go with just the default: Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham.
Got 1 or 2. It was Jason Witten and Jimmy Graham.
Witten. Wow. I guess that was one of those where Gronk was maybe hurt.
Let me see, 2012. That might have been just his second year. I think he was still coming to his own. So maybe missed by a year.
2011, he had more than Tony, though.
Oh, he did? Okay. Damn.
Yeah.
Hey, someone did his homework, Aaron.
We'll see. Okay.
So Adnan, 3 out of 5. That's solid.
Okay.
I'm glad you got that Curtis Lofton one, because Curtis talked so much crap the moment he joined the Saints. It was like he acted like he was never a Falcon. It was so weird. So when Tony caught that touchdown over him, it was just symbolic. And I remember tweeting at him. I thought he was going to block me because I tweeted Curtis when that happened.
Yeah, I do not remember this. He was this vilified. Wow.
Dude, he got there and he was like, this ain't even a real rivalry. The Falcons ain't never beat us. I was like, you was on the Falcons. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's not the only former Falcon to make that switch and start talking trash on the Falcons. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So, Adnan, any comments before we put David on the hot sheet?
I mean, I thought I did my homework. I was like looking at it more from a macro like season perspective, but yeah, I wasn't expecting these like in game. Yeah, there were way more in game sort of questions than what I saw coming for sure.
You got them though. You got both of them when it comes in game.
Yeah, I also like the last one also really tripped me up. The like comparison one, like Jason Witten, man, there's a name I haven't heard since people were hating on him for his broadcasting.
Understandably so.
I forgot about Jason Witten in the booth. Yeah, that was
real quick flash in the pan thing. Yeah.
Just like Drew Brees.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's flip the script and put David on the hot seat, and I'll ask him 5 questions, and we'll do that to wrap up. We'll see if he can get more than 3 in order to sort of redeem his previous loss in the 2020 version of this, or will we see Adnan continue on to the second round as we continue today's Locked On Falcons Historian Player Shootout? Okay, let's wrap things up here with David Schiele on the hot seat. David, are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, I'll just give you a heads up. Normally, I try to make it easier to harder, but I feel like all my questions are like medium difficulty, so we'll see how it goes. But
okay.
Number 1, Tony Gonzalez's game-winning catch in a 10-7 win versus this opponent snapped the Falcons' streak of not having consecutive winning seasons for the first time in 2009 after Falcons defensive end Chauncey Davis blocked a 37-yard field goal from this former Falcons kicker, from former Falcons kicker Jay Feely. Who was that opponent?
In 2009, it was a 10-7 win. I'm thinking that was the game against the Jets.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Number 2, Tony Gonzalez's first 100-yard game against the Falcons came in an overtime win during Week 3 of 2010 versus this NFC South rival.
Wait, hold on. You said his first 100 against the Falcons?
No, with the Falcons. I'm sorry.
Okay, Week 3, 2010, that was at New Orleans overtime victory.
There you go. That is correct. All right, that's 2 out of 5 so far. Number 3, Tony Gonzalez's last touchdown catch with the Falcons came in Week 16 of 2013 in a Monday night loss to this former division rival, playing in their final home game in a stadium that had been their home for 42 years.
49ers, I will never forget, because they had that pick 6. And dude flipped into the end zone, and it was like, oh, they're going to the playoffs. Yeah, I ain't forget that. I never forgot that.
That is correct. 3 for 3. Number 4. This could win it for you, David. Tony Gonzalez's last 100-yard game with the Falcons came in a Sunday night loss during Week 4, 2013 versus this AFC team who employed a strategy late in the game of using 2 defenders to try and jam Tony Gonzalez at the line to prevent him from catching his third touchdown pass of the night. Who was that opponent?
I just watched this game on YouTube because I low-key forgot how it ended up being so close. That was against the Patriots. And the one thing I do remember from that game, two things I remember. Our boy Nate Butler was on the field, and they put him on Sunday Night Football. And then the second thing was LeGarrette Blount had the slowest 50-yard touchdown run I had ever seen in my life. And I was looking at William Moore like, bro, why are you walking? Get him. It's the one play. I'm like, what in the – and we made, what's his name, Kimbrel Tompkins look like Jerry Rice. Yeah, I remember
Willie Moe wasn't ready.
Nah, he wasn't. That game, Atlanta had too many red zone possessions. I'm not even kidding. To get ready for this trivia, I watched that game because that's when Tony had the most yards he had as a Falcon in a single contest.
That is correct. It was the Patriots, and I did rewatch that game in the last 24 hours, and I forgot all about that LeGarrette Blount touchdown. And I watched it, and I was like, "Oh my god, how did I forget this? This was burned in my memory for like years." And yeah,
it was so slow.
Yeah, it was the worst. It was the worst. So Tony, 4 for 4. So you have won, but let's see if you can get that sort of perfect sweep here with question number 5.
Yeah,
Tony's first touchdown catch with the Falcons came in his first game in 2009 versus this AFC opponent, led by a head coach who finished second place, the Mike Smith, in the previous year's Associated Press NFL Coach of the Year voting. Mike Smith beat this coach by a single vote.
Am I naming the opponent or the coach?
The team, the opponent.
Oh, yeah, it was a third down, 20-yard touchdown pass against the Miami Dolphins.
That is correct. Good job, David. You were on your thing. Any thoughts on your 5 for 5 performance and the difficulty of those questions?
I'm glad you didn't ask me something stupid, crazy like you did last time. Name all of Tony Gonzalez's kids.
Adnan, what'd you make of those questions?
I would have gotten all.
Wow.
I can see it in his face too. I know. I was like,
I was going through them and I'm like, why couldn't I have gotten Aaron for this one?
Oh man.
Blame Alan's hat for the luck of the draw.
Aaron, I think it's a wake-up call for your questions.
Yeah, apparently I got to do better. So
no, I studied because I know how Aaron get down. Don't do that. Okay. I just studied harder than I did last time.
I don't know who the next person is that's going to get me, but they're probably screwed now. They're probably screwed. We'll see.
All right, before we end the show, so for the next round, we're going to do right now the draw. I got the hat right here. You're going to know, David, what's the next player you're going to be quizzed on the second round. So we got 3 players here. It's either going to be Algie Crumpler, Desmond Trufant, or Roddy White.
Ooh, okay.
And we are going to go with Desmond Trufant.
Hey, that's my guy. All right.
A little recent. A player that, we don't got to go into the 2000s for this one.
We don't. Yeah, no. Desmond Trufant was a guy that I was like, I'm so glad we got him. And I think we got Robert Alford that same draft, right? Then we just go 1 and 2 with those 2 guys. I thought was like this is it. These are our guys. Asante Samuel was getting older. I was a big Trufant guy. And he never got a pick 6 though. That was the one thing. Trufant got all the pick 6s, and Trufant only had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. It's like the only thing he ever did, really.
All right, don't give away all the
questions. Damn, we got prepared.
Oh, I'm giving away. Hey, I'm ready, man. Come on, bro. I'm ready. I'm the man who defeated Falcons Twitter. The day Arthur Smith got fired, I ran victory laps as I defeated Falcons Twitter, and now this Tampa Bay guy is trying to win this tournament. I'm coming after everybody. Y'all gonna respect the Falcons Twitter OG. Y'all gonna respect it.
Damn, we're gonna forget Tampa Bay guy winning a tournament, man.
Don't forget.
Cutting the promo at the end of the show.
I'm a Falcons Twitter OG. My name was @LoveMyATL before it was ever Deacon Schiele. Don't you ever forget who I am. It got me messed up. When I say somebody deserves to be fired, I mean that. And I was right about Arthur Smith. That was y'all boy. I ain't forget.
I don't know if you want to call it our boy.
That was y'all man's. That was y'all man's.
I think a lot of people turned on by October.
Last thing, Terry Fontenot still works for the Saints. No one has said it out loud. Terry Fontenot still works for the New Orleans Saints. I don't know why no one has put this out there. I think it is the quiet part that I'm not afraid to say out loud. Do you really think about how petty the Saints are? Like, the Falcons donated money for hurricane relief, and the Saints responded with, "We have 283 reasons to say thank you." Do you think they say, "Hey man, we got an idea for you. We want you to get a job with the Falcons as GM and blow it up from the inside"? I can't put that past the Saints. And look what he did. He said, "Blow up the team. That's easy." Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Oh, I'm about to kill him with this one. Mike Penix Jr. right after Kirk Cousins. And no one has ever said, "Hey, man, I think you still work for the Saints."
Before we duck out of here, Adnan, anything you want to plug that you're working on?
I'm just going to plug thefalcoholic.com, where, we do, we write anything and everything your heart can desire about the Atlanta Falcons. And I will plug the Falcoholic Live, which I co-host with Kevin Knight every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube.
David, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I can only plug myself. I know the listeners are not interested in the Bucks and the Rays and the Lightning, anything like that. But if you do want to but I do put my thoughts about the Falcons out on X at Deacon_Schiele. Schiele is spelled as you see it on the screen, Schiele. So that's at Deacon_Schiele on X. Other than that, I said what I said, man. 10 toes down.
Okay. Alan, what you got anything you want to plug before we duck out of here?
I might have a potential interview in the works. I'm not going to say who, but I've been talking to a certain player on the Falcons, and we're trying to get together.
So, guys, that's going to do it for us here on today's Locked On Falcons Historian Player Shootout. We got another one coming your way tomorrow, talking all about Michael the Burner Turner. And the two participants will be none other than yours truly, my humble self, going up against Charles McDonald of Yahoo Sports. Yes, Alan and myself are participating. Alan will be coming up with all the questions. And then later this week, you guys can check out my deep dive into Brandon Dorlus, the Falcons' fourth-round picks, all 22 film that is, several weeks in the making. And if you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And before we duck out of here, I want to let you guys know that, while Locked On Falcons should be and will be your first listen, for your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today, the free 24/7 streaming channel program for you each and every day to bring you the biggest stories, can't miss analysis, news, and opinions. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.